Hello fellow lovers of the liminal and weird, and welcome to another video by Liminal Spaces. I decided today that I was going to give you a general tour of the library, at least the first room. And I decided this because I feel like you can only see one little corner of the collection, so you don't exactly know how big what you're getting into is. I figured we'd do a general tour of the library, just all the shelves, and I'll show you what's what. So this specific room is kind of one that I set aside specifically to be a library, but also a room to hang out in, and kind of a second front room. So I'm going to turn the camera around. We can begin for my Stephen King fans. Okay. So this is the library room. I record, of course, sitting over there. And I'll just give you a quick rundown. Actually, we'll start from science fiction. This is my science fiction hardbacks. Paperbacks are all in that corner, but also up there. And also above the door there. So they're all over the place. Horror starts here, and science fiction anthologies are up there. Horror anthologies are up there. Horror paperbacks are there. Horror paperbacks go across there, just across the top here, right there. This is fantasy. And then over here is fairy and folk tales. Behind the door, very sneakily, is the last bit of horror. And then this is a table that is specific. Oh. You never saw that, all right? This is a table. There's the camera that I use to record my videos. This table here is specifically kind of a workbench for me, where I'm going through and figuring out what books to put in the shop. These aren't books I'm keeping. They're books that will go into my little booth. And then horror paper or hardbacks are over here. And then over here is Japanese. Well, the top there is history, but the rest is Japanese literature. So yeah, let's look at each of these sections specifically to get an idea. I'm not going to be pulling out books a lot and showing books because, of course, for the entire library, I'm going to go through and do what I did with the science fiction section and show my favorites from each letter of the alphabet. All right, let's get into it, and we'll start with science fiction. So my sci-fi paperbacks are in a shelf above my door here. We start with, of course, Kobo Abe's Enter Ice Age #4, which you've seen most of these. Because, of course, this is A and the very beginning of B of my collection here. And then it moves to another similar shelf hanging over my TV over this way. You can see a lot of James Blish there. I talked about I had quite a few James Blishes. Of course, you've seen all the really interesting ones from this because I did my sci-fi section B. There's some Octavia Butler. I'm looking forward to reading some of her stuff. Clark, of course. So yeah, there's my science fiction up above my TV. Okay, and then we move into the corner where I usually sit. You can see my library stairs there. That's how I get to these higher shelves up here. And my science fiction continues on this shelf. Now I've got an issue here because these are all my trade paperbacks. You can see these are all my reader copies of Philip K. Dick because I don't want to read the really old first editions of them. And then I just have some Ishiguro, Never Let Me Go, Wool. Just a lot of stuff that I'm interested in, but I'm going to have to get another shelf specifically for these trade paperbacks. So then we start to go through my... And this is a little bit confusing because I jump from D to EFG, of course, but there's no Dick here. And the reason for that is because I didn't want Dick to have, I didn't want these books to have all these kind of stuff stacked on them. I wanted these to also have a bit of a cover, just in case dust gets in. I live in a very dusty area. So yeah, there is a bit of a jump there. So here's my Philip K. Dick collection. You've seen all these. We go right into Harlan Ellison. You've seen all the, or you will see all those soon. I'm making a video about that now because we're of course to E in the library book tours. Zena Henderson. Love Zena Henderson. I have 2 of this just because I love the crazy covers on these ones. Just really neat. And one of the first sci-fis I read when I started reading sci-fi again. Get down here. We get into my Frank Herbert collection. Huxley. This one's supposed to be really good. I think I have a hard copy. Yeah, I do. I have a hard copy of that as well. C.M. Kornbluth I'm really interested in. I've heard great things about him. So I've got some of his. Yeah, Fritz Lieber. I'm interested in Fritz Lieber. I have Conjure Wife, which I've heard is really good. But I believe I've read one Fritz Lieber, and we'll get to that when we get to the doubles. More Fritz Lieber. Then we get into Ursula K. Le Guin, Stanislaw Lem. I haven't even read Solaris yet, so I'm looking forward to that. I have, oh, that's a mess up. I have a Laumer there. Sometimes these will get a little bit out of order. Michael Moorcock, somebody I'm very much looking forward to reading. I love Hawkwind, and he did a lot of work with the band Hawkwind, so I'm very much looking forward to seeing what his work is like. Larry Niven, Andre Norton. I don't know if Norton's going to be up my alley, but I have a lot. George Orwell. And of course, you'll get a look at a lot of these covers when I do each letter. Mark Reynolds, Robert Sheckley. There's my Bob Shaw, Vintage SF. I just watched a video of him talking about this one, and I'm very glad to have a copy of that because from his description, it sounds like an awesome book. Simak. I loved City. Hyperion's far up my list. That'll be coming up eventually. It's thick, and that always scares me because it means it will take way more time for me to read it before I can make a video out of it. E.E. Doc Smith. I don't know if that's going to be up my alley either, but I'll have to give one of them a try just to see. Really important. G.I. Joe. I think that's that's a choose your own adventure book right there. That's one of the only books I have still from my youth. Theodore Sturgeon. Uh-oh, there we go. My Van Vogt collection is insane, and I've only read one of his, and I kind of didn't like it. but I want to keep trying. So I haven't gotten rid of any Van Vogt yet. Here comes the Lasny, this Immortal, the Dream Master. I put them in this order because they were published that way, but the Dream Master actually came out in the magazine before this Immortal, so I consider the Dream Master his actual first. But we're just splitting hairs. This is weird, and maybe the Outlaw Bookseller can tell me something about this. I'll have to tag him and see if he watches. It's just this blue cover, The Outlaw of Gore, science fiction by John Norman, Sidgwick and Jackson, London. I've never really seen a cover like this, so I don't know what I have here. No markings on the cover whatsoever. So there you go. That's my oddest science fiction book right there. Probably fantasy. And some Vonnegut. Okay, while I'm here, instead of going directly to the DAWs, I'm going to just quickly go over some fantasy books that I've kind of split out. It starts with these, I think, Paul Hazel books. Some Anne McCaffrey. This one I'm very interested in. Apparently, these are very rare, and it's quite a beloved book. I have this one in very good condition. This is an Isaac Asimov series. Wizards, witches, cosmic knights, so on and so forth. And then we get into my Ballantine collection of adult fantasy. So many there that I want to read. Okay, up here is some more fantasy. And there's my copy of Grendel. Oh, that Ursula K. Le Guin shouldn't be there. And then my collection of Ace doubles. So, Fritz Lieber. There's one of these that I read. Where is it? And I'll probably reread it for the channel, because it was strange. I feel like it was called The Green Millennium. I'm gonna turn this off for a second and look for it. It was right in front of me. This is a terrible way to stack books. This was some strange stuff. So fun. There's this cat that glows green, and its superpower is whoever has it just feels good, feels content. And people fight and kill for this green cat just to feel content. I'll do a reading of it on the channel. It's a good time. All right, DAW time. I'm just going to go over these with some music, I think. So here we go. Those are in order of number, DAW release number. So I'm hoping to start with the first 25 and we'll start going through some of my DAWs. All right, there's only one more place, well, two more places we have to look for science fiction. Okay, so now we are in my bedroom, and this is above my window here. And we're looking at my collection of analog science fiction magazines. I've been very lucky to find quite a few of these out in the wild. And usually I'll find somebody has a box of them and gets rid of them for one price. And then if I have any doubles, I just take them into the shop. Now we go into Galaxy. Analog had some really important names, but I have a tendency to like the layout and the art in Galaxy a little better. Ooh, this one, that one's super beat up. And all of these will have, oh, it's Philip K. Dick, will have great covers. Return Match by Philip K. Dick. Yeah, the art on these are absolutely incredible. And that's my Galaxy collection. I'm having a point way up here. I'm not going to jump up right now. I'll do it another time. But that's fantasy, science fiction, if, and then just a bunch of general other ones. We'll have to look at those later. Okay, so all my hardbacks are along the side here. So we'll start way up at the top here. Of course, with Douglas Adams. Oh, well, there is Flatland. Mainly Isaac Asimov. Now this is a kind of modern barrister, so it's all one unit, and each unit has a, oh yeah, this is going to be impossible to do one-handed, has a piece of glass that slides in, which protects the books. You've seen all the good ones out of this because of course we're at A and B. There's Ray Bradbury. My one Ian M. Banks book. Actually, I think I have one more. I have two Ian M. Banks books. Arthur C. Clarke. Philip K. Dick. I think you've seen most of those. There might be a couple here that you haven't seen. Some Dixon, Harlan Ellison, a lot of Philip Jose Farmer, Black Hole. Couple of Heinleins, including a really early Stranger in a Strange Land. Dune, not a first edition. It is a first edition, but it's a book club. But it is a Chilton first edition. So I'm very happy to have that. Aldous Huxley, Tanith Lee, Fritz Leiber. Oh, I gotta show you this one. And of course I'll show this as well when I go over L. The Best of Fritz Leiber by Fritz Leiber. I think it's Leiber. The Best of Fritz Leiber by Fritz Leiber. First off, I absolutely love that he had to put in by Fritz Leiber, like we wouldn't have gotten it before. But also, I was very lucky to get a signed Best of Fritz Leiber by Fritz Leiber. So yeah, got a lot of Fritz Leiber going on with this copy. This is a book club. Le Guin, Lem, all those Ringworlds, some Michael Moorcock. This one's signed by Michael Moorcock, Robert Silverberg, Simak. Dan Simmons. I actually have a lot of him in my horror section as well. Cordwainer Smith, Norman Spinrad, Theodore Sturgeon, Van Vogt, Wells, and Williamson, who I think is a local New Mexico writer, I've learned recently, from Vintage SF and my good buddy Mike Smith. Okay, I did want to point out Barlow's Guide to Extraterrestrials. This is a really cool book. I should have talked about it in B, and I did not. This book goes over different illustrations from description of science fiction books. So here's Hal Clement's Mission of Gravity, and they drew the alien through his description. And one of the reasons I want to bring it up is because my buddy Virgil over at Literally Books is doing an incredible thing with this, where he's reading all the books that are featured in this guide and then showing off the creatures. I first saw him do it when he did his video on The Thing. So you should go over and give him a watch. He's a great YouTuber and definitely should have more subscribers. So go check him out. So there are my science fiction hard books, and that hardbacks. Okay, so over in this other corner is my fantasy. We can't look at the top. We'll get to that later. Lloyd Alexander. Of course, this is the Black Cauldron, is what they made the Disney movie out of, but I've heard these books are absolutely incredible, so I'm glad to have them. Piers Anthony. I have a hard time with Piers Anthony. I loved this. This is probably the second fantasy I ever read, and I absolutely loved it. But he hasn't... I tried to reread it, and it wasn't great. And then I read a book of his called Firefly because I was really into horror, and I was super excited when my favorite fantasy at the time writer went over to horror, and there was parts in Firefly that were so terrible that I just don't know if I can ever really give Piers Anthony a good shot again. Just really rough. Peter S. Beagle. I loved the book The Last Unicorn when I was younger. This is fantasy and science fiction that has new... I have these in too tight. New Last Unicorn in it, and then this is two novellas from the world of Last Unicorn. Marion Zimmer Bradley, also somebody that recently found out was a very, I guess, awful individual is a really kind way to put it. But I still absolutely loved these when I was younger. Great takes on the Arthurian myths. Coleridge wrote an interesting fantasy novel. Neil Gaiman. You'll see a bunch of Ursula K. Le Guin around here. I have way too many copies of her stuff. American Gods. Absolutely loved American Gods. Narnia. This is a retelling of the fairy tale Cupid and Psyche, myth/fairy tale, which I've done a bunch of work on, a bunch of study on that particular fairy tale and all of its rewrites. George Martin. I think I have that out of order, maybe? I don't know. One of these is signed. I think it's A Dance with Dragons. Oh, up here I have, all these are the books that Ghibli movies were based on. This one is especially cool. This is where the story for Spirited Away came from, and it's great. It's a quick read, really fun. Anne McCaffrey, Patrick Rothfuss. My mom and I came together over this writer. Really a great writer. I hope that someday he does finish the trilogy. There's my Harry Potters. Many of them first editions. I think starting, I mean, of course, the bigger ones are going to be the first editions because these had less print runs. But yeah, there's my Harry Potters. What's this? Sword of the Spirits trilogy. This looks like something I just grabbed out in the wild and I have to do some research on to see if I like it. Anybody read this? Let me know. Witcher. Read a bunch of those. I especially liked the connection to fairy tales in those. Mary Stuart. Love Mary Stuart. Really do. This is my Hobbit. It's an early edition. Well, early for the Hobbit is. Yeah, $3.95 on the jacket price. '19th printing of The Hobbit. Very happy to have it. And then, of course, I've got my Hobbit 50th anniversary, I think it is. 2nd edition Lord of the Rings with the maps in them. Some William Morris. I absolutely love William Morris. These books, there was an anime about them that my daughter and I absolutely loved. So we got the books, and the books are, of course, incredible. Zelazny. I put all my Zelazny over here in fantasy, which isn't fair. I'm going to have to figure that out eventually. And then my fantasy and horror anthologies. Oh, I forgot to do science fiction anthologies. I'm going to do that now. Okay, I'm going to have to get up on my ladder here to show you the anthologies because they are on a shelf that runs... Oh, this isn't my ladder, this is my chair. They are on a shelf that runs along the ceiling here. I really like these. These are from my uncle. I got him when he passed away. Wonderful guy. Really loved science fiction. This should be here because this is the beginning of that. And now Boba Fett is in my way. Boba Fett is a cool helmet that's on Shakespeare. Yeah. All right. I'm going to have to move over here. Now I will get on my stairs. These are all my sci-fi anthologies. And then I think that, yeah, right to there. So that actually finishes sci-fi. There we go.